Hello, welcome to episode 2. Today I'm going to talk about audio-visual devices. So here we are in a brand new audio-visual device family. It is not hosted. What I'm going to do is set up a couple of constraints for width, depth, and height. So we'll start off by giving a couple of reference planes here, and then we'll give it a depth. I'm going to rename this one as back, and I'll change the reference to back. I'm going to quickly give it some equal parameters and then width parameters, and this guy's going to get a depth parameter. Depth, and we'll keep it type. And this guy's probably only going to be about 3 inches. And these guys are not going to be anywhere near 8 feet. I will give this parameter of width. And these guys are going to be like 4 feet max. I'm going to bring these lines in just because I can. Let's name this one front. This way we'll always know. And now I'll go to the front elevation. I'm going to set a reference plane here and call this origin center line. Default elevation. Now this guy should be somewhere around 4 feet pretty much all the time. I'm going to give a top and a bottom. This guy width. Give this guy a height. Let's give this guy 3 foot height. So the next thing I'm going to do is start giving this some geometry. I'm going to set the work plane as the back. Start off with a rectangle. I'll do intersection, intersection, and then I'll lock it. And then 1.5 inches. We'll set a copy. Click, tab, click again. Close it out. So now we effectively have like a little donut. A little box donut. I'll drag, lock. So now I'll go back to this and I will create another geometry from the back. Right. And I'll click here. Okay. So now what we're going to do, actually let's change this to the front. So the front is going to be front. And what this is, we're going to start it at minus 0.5 inches. See that? And then we're just going to drag it back and lock it. So now, even though we change this to, let's say, 0.4, this guy is going to move and we'll always have this sort of offset. So visually speaking, I don't need this to have any sort of color, but having a little bit of an offset in there, maybe even 0.25, makes sense. Just so at least it gets a line when you're drawing it out, when you're looking at the elevation. Alright, so let's give this a material parameter. So I'm going to let's give this a material parameter. I'm going to call this mat frame. I'll call the inside one mat screen. So let's flex this a little bit. We'll do this 5 feet. Do this 0.2. Brilliant. 0.4. Front. We'll do this 2 feet. 4 feet. And we'll change the elevation to 5 feet. Great. So I'm going to save this and call this my TV. So now that I have one family as the monitor, I'm going to create another family that can become the mount. So let's say that we want a mount on the wall, and it's just going to offset from the wall. You know, I would just offset the family from the wall and not really have a mount. But if I want an angled mount so that I can show the television or monitor that's like, 45 or 60 degrees off of the wall, because it's going to be in a big conference room and it's going to take up the corner, then I'd like to show that. And eventually it would be nice to schedule that or, get a price for it or just be able to coordinate it. So I'm going to create a mount. So I'm going to start by creating a new family. Okay, so this one is going to be a little bit more complicated. Basically what we're going to have is, a rectangle here. We'll have a rectangle like here, and then we'll have one that sort of comes back into the center, and then this guy can rotate. So I'm going to start by going to the front. I'm going to create a reference plane, and we'll call this one the centerline elevation. And we're going to say that this one defines the origin and is a strong reference. And then we'll give it the elevation for default elevation. So from here, I'm going to create a little rectangle. In my view, this doesn't need to be parametric. These guys are, they're going to be small. So I'm going to say that this guy should be somewhere around 16 inches. And, it's going to be somewhere around 4 inches in each way. And then, this guy is just going to be, it's going to start 1 inch, minus 1 inch. Okay. So now I'm going to create a reference line. And reference lines are really great for things that need to rotate. So I'm going to create a dimension to here. And I'm going to say this guy is, let's just call it angle. Okay. So if I need to change this to 20, you can see, it wants to stay sticky there, but it's going to rotate the angle. I'm going to go here, change So here, I'm going to hide this real quick, and I'm going to align these little ends just to be sure. Okay, and then I'm going to create a reference, another reference line, and I'm going to try to make it 90 degrees perpendicular to this original, and then I'm going to lock it. So in theory, I should be able to rotate this, and it's going to stay. Right? Unfortunately, you're going to see this guy get sort of smaller and smaller. So what I can do is from here, I will create another reference line. And this is kind of overkill. I don't know if this is needed. Let's do 0.6. This one is 0.6. We'll just lock these. All right. So now if we change this to, let's say, 60 degrees, we should have the same, 6-inch back here. Now I can't build anything off of this per se, but what I can do, like the way that we would from like a hosting from the other side, like we did for this one, I can't really call out a reference plane here to start. But what I will do is create an extrusion here. I will build it off of our new centerline reference there. I'm going to say this is going to go up 4 inches, and this one will be negative 4 inches. So I'll have an 8-inch height. I'm going to click, 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 and we'll offset. Let's say it's 1 inch. All right, so let's see if it works. So it's pretty good. It doesn't want to maintain this depth though. Let's make this 1 inch and we'll lock it. We'll see if that makes it a little easier. Great. All right, so the next thing I want to do is create the sort of arm that comes off here. To offset this by 3 inches, I'm going to lock this, and let's trim it up. Let's give these guys a lock parameter so that it stays. All right. So now if we rotate this way to 30 degrees, you might end up with a really short side here, so it might break. Well, it looked like it worked. And if you go to, let's say, 60 degrees, all right, that looked like it worked. Let's change the arm length to 2 feet. Oh, look at that, it worked. And if we change it to 0.8 inches, all right, that looked like it worked. Let's see the front. Awesome. One thing to make sure that you do here is lock these two constraints. All right. So I'm going to save this as a monitor mount thing arm. Okay, so the next step is to create a wall-based family so that these two things can be hosted in and we can plant these families on a wall. So I'll create a new family. I'm going to call this one like an audio video family as well. So I'll start off with generic wall-based. I'll change the category to an audio video device. All right, so the first thing we want to do is load in those new. Actually, let's start off by placing a new reference plane here. Okay, if you remember, these guys are going to be the default elevation. Default elevation, so let's change it to 6 feet. We'll call this one a strong reference, defines origin, and is a line elevation. Technically, this guy should probably be a center line, center elevation. So now if I start modeling something, I can place it on there. But I'm going to instead just link in these two families. So I'm going to go to bring these two in. So I'm going to have two new families, this guy and this one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an instance of this family. It's going to want to come in at 3 feet. I'm going to change it to 0 feet. And I can place this anywhere, but I'm going to start by aligning it here. I'm going to align the center and center. I'm going to align this face with this face. And let's go to I'm going to align it center to there. So if I change this, it should go up and down. Cool. If I can start to control, I can link in these parameter values as well. So let's say I'm going to create an angle. And I'm going to create an arm length. Arm length. And both of these, in practicality, should be instance-based. So let's go back and switch that to instance-based. Because we're going to have a type of family, like a 60-inch monitor, but the arm is going to sort of rotate depending on where it is in the room. Okay, so now they should have. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is hide this component. I'm going to create two reference lines. Create one from this origin here. And I'm going to create one perpendicular to it. So this one is going to align, tab align, click. This one here is going to be let's lock this first, 90 degrees, and this one will become the angle. Okay, and then this one will become the arm length. Okay. Now let's place this family of the TV. I'm going to align it to here to here. And I'm going to align here to here. And one thing I'm going to do is give this the additional parameter here. I'm going to sort of lock this parameter to the actual element. All right. So let's see. Great. So 75, we'll go that way. Let's check the, great. So you see this arm needs to sort of extend out because at some point it's going to hit that wall. All right, so let's check this. Now we'll align here to here. Let's turn off these annotations. All right. And so the next thing we need to do is link these parameters of this family to this family. So let's call this depth. And we'll call this height. Call this one. Whoop. Let's go into our parameters here. We'll organize it like with depth height. Arm length. Great. Let's save this as monitor arm wall based. Let's create a new project. Let's draw a wall. Do another wall. And we'll do another wall. Let's go here, load it in. Look at that. Start to be able to place it here, here, here. Let's give this one a 80 degree. Let's say these guys are, actually, one thing I want to do is to be able to give this a control. So let's give this a control for left, right. Load it back in and close it. Let's flip that one. And then we'll call this 80 degrees. That one's probably okay. Let's go to an elevation. And excellent. I don't really like the height here that this is going to default at. So one thing we can do is change the, let's say this guy is probably closer to 6 feet. Let's create an instance at 6 feet. You're not going to be able to see it here. Okay. And there's our family. So some things that we covered in this project we're nesting families. We are nesting two different families into a third family. We are nesting the monitor and the monitor arm. We're assigning them default heights. We are giving them parameters that can then port into a larger project. And then we are able to use it. One really cool thing about this is that we are controlling the radial length and angle. Cheers.